Hello soldiers, welcome to another episode of Soul Mission, where we believe that each of us have a profound purpose that is waiting to be unlocked. I'm your host Aya Daniel, and if you've not done so already, go ahead and give Mission of the Soul a follow on Instagram. It would be greatly appreciated to help grow Soul Mission podcast. And as we start every podcast episode, empower your soul and ignite your mission, because your journey starts now. Now, this episode of Soul Mission is all about burnout. What is burnout? How can we recognize the early symptoms? How do we recover from it? And just to educate you a bit about what burnout is, because it's something that a lot of people go through. And it's a kind of universal thing that people don't realize is happening to them until it's happened. And still then they can't really identify what it is. They don't realize that, okay, I'm suffering from burnout. And it's recognized by the World Health Organization. It's recognized as a syndrome. So it's progressive. It doesn't happen straight away. And then it turns chronic. And it's recognized as an occupational phenomenon. So it's based all around working and working too hard, working to a point where you're just suffering from mental exhaustion. And it's become one of the most important, significant occupational psychological hazards that there is. So it's a really important phenomenon that people should read into, should research about, and should know what the early symptoms are, and if they have burnout, and ways to recover from it as well. So there was a study that I read, and it said that 93% of UK employees suffer from some symptoms of burnout, and 20% of people have to take time off work for mental health reasons, for mental exhaustion. So it's a really vast matter, and it's something that a lot of people go through, and it's a really hard journey and battle, because it's something that slowly creeps in, and because it's not talked about so often. And what workplaces should do is take initiative to educate their staff on it, because of course, if you have staff that are burning out, they're not going to be as productive, they're not going to be working as hard, and it should be something, the whole mental health side of companies should be really focusing on burnout, just in case anyone is going through it, because it's a really easy thing to happen without even realising. The word burnout was originally coined from someone called Graham Greene, who was an author, and he wrote a novel called A Burnout Case. And it was about an architect that didn't find fulfillment in his personal life nor in his working life. And then this was taken on into the psychological kind of landscape by someone called Herbert Freudenberg, who classified it or kind of described it as emotional exhaustion, fatigue, and frustration due to not getting the results that they want from work. That's what it used to kind of be originally described as, and obviously it's changed over time, but though that was the basis for burnout. It was just not feeling any fulfillment in your work and feeling exhaustion and fatigue from it, basically. So there's just zero enjoyment. It's just the last thing that you want to do, and even thinking about work makes you tired. Now, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to this. I worked in the corporate world, and I was surrounded by people that I remember one woman said to me, I just constantly feel like I'm about to have a heart attack. Everyone was losing their hair. Everyone was they just seemed exhausted. And I was thinking, are they loving what they're doing? Hence why, they're putting, their life and soul into this? Or is it because they simply have to? There's something else that you can do, and burning out is just seen as that's just what's going to happen. You have to put all this work into your work. And if you do burn out, you just got to work through it, but you cannot work through burnout, and that's the whole point of it. It becomes chronic. It's not a medical condition, but it's a syndrome that people just aren't taking seriously, and it's something that has to be dealt with early on. It's something that you have to recognize early on, because all too often it's confused with anxiety, it's confused with work pressure, it's confused with stress. And that just sometimes isn't what it is. It's your body's actually shutting down. It's actually completely detaching from work. So apart from feeling drained, other symptoms of burnout are things like self-doubt, having a negative outlook on life, procrastination. So you're actually just struggling to get basic tasks done, or tasks in general done, and just having a complete detachment to work. So I recently read a study, and one thing that I found interesting in it is it said that one reason for burnout can be due to something called performance protection. So that's in work environments where you have to prove to others that you are worthy of your position. And I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. As I said, when I worked in investment bank, I worked as an assistant, so the kind of level of work wasn't as hard as the actual bankers. But I could see so clearly that there was this massive idea of performance protection. And it was just like, you have to just prove that you are the best in your field. You are just incredible at what you're doing. You have to protect that, and you can't slack, you can't mess up, you can't, or you'll be seen as less, you'll be seen as you're not worthy of a promotion, you'll be seen as, oh, maybe we should have hired someone else. And so there's that massive, massive stress and weight on your shoulders. And of course, with jobs, you're not meant to enjoy every aspect of it. Sometimes people don't enjoy their jobs at all. But it's about, if you are going to work every day, it's about not feeling this immense level of anxiety, which then could lead to you actually really deteriorating in the future. There's 3 different dimensions or 3 different ways that burnout can be caused. It starts off with frenetic approach to burning out, a motivation to keep a job. So if that's like a commission-based job, a sales-based job where you need to reach these targets, you must, that's the only way that you're keeping this job, then that can cause burnout. Then there's under challenge. So if the work's monotonous, if it's not stimulating for you, you don't feel like you're being challenged enough, that can also cause burnout. And then there's worn out, which means that there's lack of recognition, there's lack of control. You're basically have sold your soul to a company and you have no control. All you need to do is work. And then under that are things like the demand and resources theory. So that's basically the demands of work and the resources within yourself that you can give. So resources are like your time flexibility, supervisor support, autonomy. So those are resources surrounded by you. And then that with the demand of work. So the demands of work, the tight deadlines, the schedules, reaching targets. And if the demands exceed the resources, that's when burnout can happen, because that's when you can't give any more, but work is asking for more and more and more and more, and you end up just completely shutting down and burning out. It can take some people up to a year to recover from burnout, 1 year, and it's taking people 4 years before, and at the least 3 months. But it has such mental, psychological, physical toll on your body. It completely consumes your entire being, and it can actually take your body a lot of time to recover and to feel able to cope with work again, to cope with the task. Because when you're burnt out, you're unable to do basic tasks, you're unable to do anything associated with work. And I think it's something that's so relevant, especially in the corporate world, where the whole hustle grinding culture is the main thing, is you're meant to be grinding every day. And of course, that is what people see as a means to success. But successful people, if you listen to successful people and their morning routines and their daily routines, it's really time-stamped. So they are not letting work overtake their life because they know that they won't be able to perform anymore. So everything's really organized. And there's something called organizational burnout, which is when there's just lack of organization, meaning that you're giving too much of your time and too much of your energy because there's no routine, there's no time slot, there's no like this, I'll stop work now, I'll stop work at this time, then I'll refresh myself for tomorrow. And it's not about being, I think a lot of people will confuse that for being lazy or not being dedicated enough, but it's about making your mental health a priority as well. So work all you like, but as long as you are perceptive of your body and of your internal aspects of yourself, to make sure that you are able to feel healthy and perform at your best and produce effective results without being mentally drained, is really important. I read this quote recently by someone called Arianna Huffington, and she said that to give up the idea that burnout is the inevitable cost of success. I'm going to say this again. Give up the idea that burnout is the inevitable cost of success. So that is to eradicate the whole notion that forcing yourself to burn out to try and reach the top is not always what's going to make you reach the top. And those that actually time manage themselves, they prioritize themselves, they optimize their time in a way that's efficient and that protects themselves. There's ways to work hard where you are able to be constantly productive and constantly feeling your best without feeling exhausted. You're not likely to be doing as well if you had prioritized your time, prioritized yourself, prioritized work as well, but you've compartmentalized everything so you are able to still succeed, but in a way that you are also okay. So there was a post that I saw and it showed these older people what their one regret was in life. And one of the regrets from this person was that they worked too hard. And that was their main regret. It was like, I put too much into work. And what's interesting is that the workplace, it's such a temporary place, because if you were to get ill, if you were to die, if you were to not be able to work anymore, they would replace you. Your desk will be cleared out by the end of the week and they will be interviewing new people the next week. So when people are burning themselves out and they are suffering with all of these chronic stresses, for what? Why? What is the point in that? You might as well find a routine and find a way in life where you are feeling fulfilled in your work life and your personal life. And that starts from within you. That starts from you sitting down with yourself going, okay, how can I balance this? How can I balance the demands of work life, the demands of my personal life, making sure that I'm healthy and happy? And of course, not everyone's always going to be happy. Work's not meant to be a place always where you're jumping for joy going into work every day. Of course, some people have that and they're very lucky to. But so at least try and find some peace in that and try and find a routine where you are fulfilled in some kind of way, where you aren't feeling every time you're going into work that this is the last place I want to be. And the only way that you can really do that is by finding good routines, good schedules, working on yourself out of work to ensure that when you're in work, you're in a healthy mindset. You don't have any brain fog. So here are some of the early signs of burnout that everyone needs to know. You must know these. You must go away having memorized these early signs, because the identification stage of burnout is the most critical stage. It's the stage where you have to listen to your internal system and go, okay, I'm genuinely deep down not feeling good at all. There's 4 different stages of burning out. So there's the mild stage, which means that you're suffering from a little bit of fatigue. You're still operative, you're still functioning. There's random kind of physical symptoms like back pains, headaches, and that's the first stage of burnout. And as much as a headache, people will never think that that's even the beginning of anything. They're just like, it's a headache. But it's that initial fatigue, that initial bit of exhaustion where you're like, oh my God, I'm beyond tired. You've got these huge bags in your eyes and you're just very tired. Then the next stage is moderate. So that's when you start to get insomnia, when you're starting to waking up in the middle of the night thinking about work, when you can't sleep, when your brain's racing, when you become more irritable. There's this kind of lack of motivation. You're not feeling good. You're not feeling like I'm going to go and seize the day. It's more like I'm bloody tired and I don't feel like doing anything. And there's this attention deficit. So that's when I said about the procrastination, is you're just not focusing. So that's the moderate stage of burnout. And I think that's a lot more noticeable, because when you start realizing that you're not paying attention properly, you're getting annoyed quickly, you're not feeling good, you're not feeling like you want to go and do your best at work, you're feeling the complete opposite. That's the more moderate stage, and that's the more kind of recognizable stage of burnout. But if you haven't caught that you're burning out, the mild stage and the moderate stage, I reckon, is when most people are realizing like, this is not good. And you don't want to wait until you're at the extreme or severe stage, because that's when it can take you months to recover. And not everyone will take time off work. Sometimes you can't do that. A lot of the time you can't. So you're there at work, still working, trying to then recover from burnout. And it's almost impossible and counterproductive. So the next stage then is severe burnout. And that is when you go to alcohol use, drug use, you find unhealthy coping mechanisms to numb the pain, and you aren't coping well. You're finding other means to try and numb this feeling of stress. And there's also increased absenteeism. So that's when you're taking time off work, maybe working from home more, you're not coming into work as much, you're taking days off, you're detaching yourself from work. It's almost like depersonalization. You're starting to not want anything to do with it. And then there's severe burnout, which is the last stage. And that's when you reach a level of chronic depression. That's when you kind of go into this crisis mode and you're unable to work anymore. You just can't do it. And once you've reached that stage, that's, as I said, when it becomes chronic, and it will take a massive toll on your body, massive psychological. And this will obviously affect your home life, your personal life. And that is all from this job that you go to every day that you are able to control. but it completely encapsulates your life at this point. And that's when people go and seek help. And that's a really hard point to be at. That's a really, and it's an easy place to get to because it's progressive, but it can happen quite quickly or it can happen over years. And there's a quote by someone called Lou Holtz, and she said, it's not the load that breaks you, it's the way that you carry it. So it's not about how much work you have, it's about how you carry out working, how you carry out performing those tasks, how you carry that load. How do you do it? What is your routine? What is your schedule? How do you carry that load in a way that doesn't cause you to burn out? And that's a really interesting way to look at it. I'm going to say the quote again. It's not the load that breaks you down. It's the way that you carry it. It's not the load that breaks you down. It's the way that you carry it. So you must carry it in a way that's protecting yourself and that's ensuring that you're still doing well at work. And burnout's not a byproduct of not being at your best. It's not a byproduct of personal failure. It's a byproduct of a dysfunctional workplace, a workplace where you must hustle to the point that you literally don't sleep at night. And I know when I worked in the corporate world that people were not sleeping. People were in the office till 4 a.m. People were, sleeping in the office. And I think, to me, that sounded quite exciting when I first joined. I was like, oh my God. And I think that obviously is a part of the corporate culture. And it's something that people just deal with and they just say, this is just part of it. But that is ultimately dysfunctional. There's some people that can handle that. There's some people that live for that. And there's one person at my old work who said they love it. And there's some people that do. But I think it's almost inevitable that person or people like that will suffer from some kind of burnout down the line, because how much can our body take? So it's not about grinding and hustling. It's about how you grind and hustle. How do you make sure that you're still working at your best and you're still performing at your best, but how outside of that are you looking after yourself to ensure that you don't reach a stage of chronic stress? So the ways to kind of recover from burnout and the ways to help your body recover and recuperate are various things. You can start off with your nighttime routine or your morning routine, for example. So before bed, for example, you can take supplements. So you can take supplements like magnesium to help you sleep. You can ensure that you're getting your 8 hours of sleep a day and ensure it's getting done. So make sure that you're getting your work done so that you have that time off to then have a good sleep and wake up feeling fresh. So that's about compartmentalizing and time management. And 51% of people in the UK aren't getting enough sleep. That's half of us, including myself. I don't get enough sleep. I have a sleep schedule that's really kind of up and down and kind of up in the nighttime, sleeping again up in the nighttime. But really working on that nighttime routine and getting your 7-8 hours and ensuring that all the work that needs to be done in your time frame is done. So then you are leaving at a certain time, or you are ensuring that you're getting this much amount of sleep is really important. That's something that makes us function. Sleep is just ridiculously important to the functioning of our bodies, of our neurological system, of our means of functioning properly. So showering before bed. And I read this monk that was speaking about the importance of showering before bed. And some people shower in the morning, some people shower before nighttime. I do both because when I wake up in the morning, my kind of ritual is to just shower. That makes me start my day. And then before bed, what the monk said was that when you're showering before bed, that cleanses you of the day. That just cleanses you, like the water running down you. It's just cleansing you of everything, all the stress, or whatever of your day. So that could be like a ritual that you now, or like a routine that you now impose to make sure that you're going to bed. Also that the heat helps you get into that kind of nighttime sleepy mode. And sleeping in the cold, so not sleeping with any heaters on, sleeping in normal room temperature, it's said that around 15 degrees is the best temperature to sleep in. So I used to sleep with heaters on, and I'd sleep with these heaters on and my room would be baking hot, but I'd want it to be like a sauna. And I actually had the worst sleeps when I was like that. I'd wake up dripping in sweat, and I didn't realise that it was stopping me from actually having a full-on sleep. You don't reach your REM sleep when you're sleeping in such heat. So if you sleep in a cool room, you're likely to sleep through the night, you're likely to sleep with ease. Now back to showering. So I keep talking about showering, but having cold showers, that is something that I used to do and I want to get back into doing it again. I do it occasionally, But a study found that cold showers, when this group of participants had cold showers every day for 6 months, their levels of depression decreased massively. Because cold showers, it basically alerts your body, it frightens all of your body, it wakes you up, and you can do that in the morning, is having a cold shower and starting your day basically with your body in this shock. So you're alert, you're feeling alive, you're feeling fresh. And that's why people have ice baths. I remember listening to a podcast by Jay Shetty's podcast on purpose. And he said that he started doing ice baths and he wanted to start doing it 3 times a week. And he just said that it just felt like he was almost reinvented again. It just makes your body so much more alert and so much more awake. So when you're feeling really tired and groggy in the morning, if you just take the urge, and it's really hard to get into a cold shower, but if you just jump in, cold shower, and you breathe and you breathe and you breathe and you breathe, and then then you get out, but you finish off with a cold shower. So I'd have a hot shower first and I'd switch it off and have a cold shower to end. And it would make me feel so much better. And I really highly recommend getting into your cold shower routines. And then you can look into things like breathing techniques. So pursed lip breathing, Wim Hof breathing, box breathing, all these kind of stress relieving breath work is something that can really help you in your day to day. So if you're finding yourself at work feeling stressed out, having this like anxiety in your chest, because when you have anxiety, there's like this tightness in your chest and you're stressed with this tightness. If you get into your breath work and you do your box breathing, which is like breathe in, hold for 4, breathe out for 2, hold for 4, and then you've got your Wim Hof breathing, which is basically forcing your body to hyperventilate. And then it actually calms you down. It triggers a part in your prefrontal cortex, and that is basically a stress receptor. So it causes you to stress, and then that in itself inadvertently causes you to de-stress. I've spoken about this in my other podcast, how it works, but it does the opposite effect. So Wim Hof breathing, and you can listen to any Wim Hof guided breathing exercise on YouTube, and it is incredible. It really, really, really helps. And it almost, when I do it, it makes me feel like I'm elevating, and then you come out and you've got no more stress here, no more pain, no more anxiety. And little things like that, if you just find little routines, little things that you do every day, it doesn't have to be every day, but little things that you stick to and you know, okay, I'm going to do this because I'm feeling this way, will really help you anchor yourself. And there's also a 5-finger method. It's basically starting off with putting let's say your index finger from your right hand onto the tip of your thumb on your left hand. And you go down the thumb, and as you're going down the thumb, you're breathing in. And then as you're going up, you're kind of guiding your index finger up, your other index finger up, and you're breathing out. And then down the index finger, breathe in. And then as you're going up, you breathe out again. And that's something that you can literally do sitting at your desk. It's something that people won't really realize that you're doing, but it might help you just sat there by yourself if you're feeling any kind of way. So noticing what your body's feeling and taking action is really important. You must be perceptive of your body and what it's telling you. Our minds and our bodies are so intelligent, and you have to imagine your mind as like a database or a computer. If a computer goes into overdrive, computers can always go into overdrive because there's too much information, there's too much going on in there, it just shuts down. That is equally the same with our mind on a much bigger scale, because our mind is even more intelligent than a computer. But that's what happens. So when you're feeling a type of way, you have to listen to your body and you have to act on it, and act on it soon, because you don't want it to get to that extreme stage or severe stage of burnout. So I hope that this can help anyone that's listening, and I hope that you can take some of these tips and some of these facts about burnout and implement them in your life, in your daily life. And I hope that anyone that's gone through burnout, that they've gone through it and they've recovered, and they can teach other people about it, or warn other people about what burnout is and how to prevent it and how to notice the early symptoms. So as we wrap up another episode of Soul Mission, I want to thank each and every one of you for listening in, and remember that your mission is a powerful force for good in the world, and your mission matters. Until we meet again, soldiers, peace, love and happiness.